Chairman. Okay, we are now live on Facebook and we're ready to start whenever you are, Mark.
Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. It's now 5:23 on Monday, October 27th. This is a meeting of the Village of Shorewoods Hills Finance Committee. Julie, will you do the roll call?
I will. Mark Clutterberg,
Here.
Dietmar Bassuner is on his way. Gloria Beach,
Present.
Sean Cody, do we know if he is on his way or not? Brian?
No.
We didn't get in contact with him.
Yeah.
Kate Crowley,
Here.
Liz Heiner,
Here.
and Marilyn Townsend.
Here.
Okay. Julie has, I hesitate to ask this question.
Yeah.
This is a trick question. Has the meeting been properly posted?
Did, for 5 PM.
Okay,
There was some confusion that the meeting was originally intended to be 7 PM. But we're going with the official notice, which was posted in 3 places, so. It
At
is
this
a 5
hour.
PM meeting.
all right, thank you.
And for the record, I don't know if you've just changed this, Julie, but on the village calendar, it also says 5 PM.
I did change
You
that.
just changed it.
I changed that before I came downstairs, so.
Okay, so it was 7 o'clock. Okay.
It was. Yes.
First order of business is the approval of minutes of August 25th and October 21st. And if the committee members had a chance to look at those, Gloria, I did get an email from you over Sunday with respect to the changes that you requested. I don't know, Julie, whether you had a chance or Chrissy or anyone to look at where the passage that Gloria wanted to insert, where that would go in those minutes of the 25th. Because that would, unless Gloria
I should
knows.
think it would be in section 8, where it says discussion due diligence on Logic Building potential purchase. Since it was germane to the Logic purchase and it was part of the discussion for due diligence regarding that purchase. And I provided what I thought was.
I must have missed that email. Did you send that to me, Gloria?
I think it came to Brian and myself.
Brian J. Fitzgerald at Shorewood Hills with
I got it.
Shorewood Hills Wish, Shorewood Hills WI.gov. I did
Yeah.
send it.
Oh,
Is
that your email address?
Might have missed it.
So it was correction, the subject matter is correction requested to 08/25/25 draft finance committee meetings. And I sent it at yesterday afternoon.
Okay, let me take a quick look. Is that way I can copy and paste?
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, while you're doing that, Gloria, will you just read the language that
So
you.
the language that I would like to have put into section 8 under discussion due diligence on Logic Building potential purchase reads, Beach question timing of Barrett hypothetical scenario, and I put parenthetical modeling potential bond issuance for Logic acquisition as having occurred before board had authorized village president to enter negotiations to purchase. Fitzgerald volunteered that she had reached out to Baird to run the models.
Okay, hold on. Let me,
Well,
Bear doesn't run models. So hold on.
Okay, so
Okay, the most. Each question the timing of the Bear hypothetical scenario. As having occurred. Before board authorized the village president to enter negotiations. with the church. Okay, so we're talking, okay, I see what you're saying, okay.
I'm going to quibble a little bit. Why is that not a model?
I'm sorry, well, we're using the word model with the Ellers, and so I was thinking a financial model. This is, it is it's just a different term than what we're using currently. It is a form of a
Yes,
model.
it is.
I was thinking you were talking about Ellers,
I'm
so
not.
that was my misunderstanding.
Okay.
So. When did we discuss this?
August 25th, 2025. During the discussion of due diligence regarding Logic. And specifically, I asked about the timing of the Baird hypothetical scenario coming out on June 11th, when the first closed session for the board wasn't until June 17th. And then I was over there and you were there. Big
Yeah,
surprise.
I see.
You were right there. I was over here, you were over there, and you volunteered that you had decided to call Baird because you thought since we were looking at doing this, it would be helpful.
Yes, I was asked to find the numbers.
So what I would like to have in the record is I question the timing of Baird hypothetical scenario, which models the potential bond issuance for Logic acquisition as having occurred before the board had authorized village president to enter negotiations to purchase. Fitzgerald volunteered that she had reached out to Baird to run the models.
It's up, I guess it's up to you guys. I haven't reviewed, it's my fault for not having, I missed your Sunday email, this morning. I didn't see that. Yeah, I haven't reviewed the meeting recording or anything to see exactly, I don't remember the context. It's not that I'm questioning you, Gloria.
No, that did occur and we asked who authorized you to do it and you were circumspect.
I don't remember that part. I don't
well, I
remember
do.
that.
That's the thing is I don't remember the conversation. off the
And
top
she
of
said
my
I
head,
did it on my
So
So we have a couple options. We
You want me to
can,
make a motion to,
oh, you can certainly do that.
motion to accept the August minutes with Gloria's
correction.
correction?
I would
I'd like to
second that.
review it just to make sure what I said. 'cause
We have
I
a
don't even know
motion.
What I said.
We have a motion. It's been seconded.
Let's
Okay,
let
hold on.
Julie catch up. So you have the motion. Julie?
I'm only doing the August ones right
Yeah.
now, not that we're
Right.
doing separate.
Yes, we're not getting to October yet.
So it was by Gloria and seconded by Liz.
No, it was by
Seconded.
Liz, seconded by Marilyn. And I guess now we can have that discussion.
Julie, catch up.
Well, what Gloria said is consistent with my recollection. But I have no problems with Julie reviewing Facebook. I assume it's still there.
No, it's not on Facebook anymore.
No.
It's not on
we
Facebook.
have the Zoom recording.
You have Zoom recording. So I have a question that somebody else, and this is germane to this discussion. I have a question somebody else asked me just yesterday regarding how long these video recordings stay on Facebook and why they don't stay forever.
They used to stay on. And Facebook changed their policy. We have no control over it, but they're deleting them after 30 days.
30 days.
Oh, wow.
Correct. So we have no control over that.
So we need to
we're
go to
looking-
YouTube.
So we're looking at possibly setting up a YouTube channel so that we can keep stuff longer, but honestly, because we're at 50% staff, we haven't been able to pursue it.
Okay.
But we've discussed that we would like to have something. We do get the Zoom recordings, we do save them until the minutes are approved. So, yes,
And then is the process that you don't save them after the minutes are reviewed?
usually we don't. Usually we keep them for a year, but the official thing is you're supposed to get rid of them after the minutes are approved because the minutes become the official record.
And that's been inconsistent with my experience because I remember when that whole thing with recreation committee happened and well, yeah, it's like I was defending your husband and so.
So they used to be available on Facebook, so it wasn't as big of a deal to, and now that Facebook has changed, we need to change our process and we're trying to do that. So right now, we're just keeping the Zoom recording.
Well, I think that I remember this conversation and I remember not questioning you, Julie, because I didn't ask the question to put you into a bad spot.
Mhm.
I did feel at the August meeting that the staff was being put into a bad spot because of the multiple CIPs, the multiple budgets, the due diligence, it was never even discussed if the village staff has ever even run due diligence. And I felt bad for you guys in August, but so I didn't press that issue. But I did notice the issue, and I did notice the timing of June 11th, and I do want that in the record. And other people here also remember, and I think that just to move on with this meeting so that we can talk about more important things, being the tax levy, I would suggest we call the vote, but I would like it to be a roll call vote.
Let's,
This doesn't say anything about June 11th in.
I know that.
consent. Is that okay?
I'm aware of that.
Okay, I just want to make,
okay,
because that won't be reflected in the minutes then.
Should I have that in?
Then let's put that in.
But that's where I want to look at the recording too, because I don't remember dates being said. Because I know I wouldn't have said a date because I wouldn't have known what.
Well, I knew the date because I was looking at the scenario and I did attach that to the email. The scenario that Baird produced was produced on June 11th. And the closed session happened on June 17th. And the only reason I'm aware of any of this is because my favorite attorney, no offense. No offense. My favorite attorney, did open records requests. And that's how I knew what the dates were. And it seemed very cart before the horse, having Baird run financial scenarios prior to the board being asked to go into closed session. And furthermore, what I did not include in this as well is Dietmar, who was sitting here, also said that that financial scenario hypothetical had not been included in the board package that weekend in preparation for the June 17th meeting. I found that odd too. Not really a big thing.
let's get back to these minutes, okay? So first, I just want to make sure there are no other changes to those minutes, because once we approve them, I don't want to go back and pick up any further revisions. So is Gloria's amendment the only one? Does anybody else have changes? Okay,
I don't have a change, but I have a question.
yeah,
May I ask a question?
yeah, of course.
If we approve the amendment now, or the change now,
Yep.
and rightfully so, Julie wants to check the recording.
Yep.
And it's inconsistent with the change, then what?
Yeah,
Then I don't check the record, then it's just done. You're not giving me a chance to check the recording. Once it's approved, their official minutes, they're done.
I would be okay with the pull the tape. I'd be okay with that. But I would also like access to the tape if it's not on Facebook anymore.
And I can definitely do that, but I guess.
So are we amending my motion to say, subject to Julie's review? I
then
just
we
want
can't-
to.
then we
Right,
can't-
right, exactly.
Then we can't approve it.
Yeah, I would say we shouldn't approve it. We should just table it and then pick it up
All right.
at our next meeting of the finance committee when she's had a chance to review the tape and,
But I would
So
also,
do we need a motion for that?
yeah, or.
well, we should probably vote on hers, yes or no. Or
That would
amend
be one
it,
way to do it, just,
or we amend it to subject to Julie
And
doing that
Gloria's.
research. Yeah, and I want to see that tape too.
I would personally prefer not to amend it, subject to Julie's review. I think it's just cleaner to just, we will take this up at the next meeting. Julie will have a chance to review it. Anyone else has a chance to review it, and we will just go from there.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so will you just withdraw the motion then?
Motion.
Okay, what is that?
And I've got a new one that says
Hold
We're-
on,
we're
hold on.
tabling it.
Hold on a second, guys. I gotta, because I'm putting in Gloria's thing here for, so we need to vote on that. So we could just vote and say motion failed.
That's what we were just
I
discussing.
thought we could simply withdraw it or hold it.
So,
So
We
was
have
it
the
for
21st, last week's minutes too.
not up on Robert's rules on this particular.
Where's
question.
Dietmar? Dietmar. Call Dietmar.
All right.
Okay, but Julie, you want us to vote on the motion rather than try to withdraw it?
We can.
Or just table it.
Well,
Pass the-
she was
No,
willing
it's
to
not the
amend it.
motion. We're past the point. We could have tabled the minutes until next meeting, but right now we have a motion in a second.
But it's amended also. So Mark is saying he doesn't want to amend. Yes, it was
Did we vote on
It
it
was
amended?
withdrawn.
It was amended
Sure.
first, but then Mark said he didn't want it to be amended because he thought that was too messy. And so
Can-
then you withdrew.
Can we just vote on it and have it fail, and then we can have a motion to table those minutes to the next meeting? That would probably be the cleanest way, if you guys are
I
okay
think
with
that would be the cleanest thing.
I'm okay.
Because then there's
I
no
think of the
question.
unwithdraw.
Let's just call the vote on this. And then I'll entertain another motion with respect to this issue.
I just want to say I won an award for Robert's Rules of Order, understand? I want to say, I do, I have a glass plaque and everything.
Do you want to just say withdraw? We can, if the motion was withdrawn.
It's
But
withdrawn.
that's what we wanted to do, if that's okay.
What we
Okay.
wanted to
Is
do was
that
actually
okay?
amend it,
Yeah.
and Mark said
The
no.
whole thing's withdrawn. I don't want to vote no on this.
I don't want to vote no either.
Can I just withdraw? it?
So, okay, we'll put that Liz.
It was withdrawn.
Motion. And you agree with that as the person who seconded Marilyn?
Yeah.
Okay,
And do we need a motion to table it?
I think that'd be a good idea.
I will move to table the August 25th, 2025 minutes until Julie and I can review the recording to establish a correction to those minutes.
I second that.
Okay. Okay, seconded by Liz, I'm ready for a motion, or I'm sorry, a vote,
You ready, Julie?
yes.
Okay. So any discussion on the motion? Hearing none then, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand or say aye.
What
Those
was
of-
the motion to withdraw?
No,
No.
hey, we're
Table.
tabling it.
To table.
August
You made a
15th,
motion to table.
The recording.
So Marilyn,
August 20th.
you're voting, okay. All those opposed? Absence, okay. Abstentions, none. Okay, so the motion passes. So we will take that up at our, hopefully at our next meeting, but whenever Julie and Gloria get a chance to review those minutes. So now the question is to the October 21st minutes. Does anybody want to put that on the table? Or do you want to defer that as well? That's a little risky.
I make a motion.
You'll make a
To
motion
accept.
to approve the minutes of October 21st. Is there a second? You got that, Julie?
Okay,
All right,
correct.
yeah.
Yep.
October 21st minutes as presented.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion with respect to those minutes? Any amendments, modifications?
Will, the discussion I would say would be, having reviewed these minutes, I saw again, I was reacquainted with Fred Wade's comments about finance meeting more sooner to
More
more
often.
frequently, but sooner in the year, so that we can understand really what things are happening, so that it's not all pushed at the end of the year. And I would suggest that maybe what we are doing is on a quarterly basis, possibly looking at this sort of a template to see where we are Q1, Q2, so on and so forth, so that we're understanding as we're pacing through the year and we're more familiar with what the budget is doing, what the mechanics of the budget are doing. So it's not at the end of the year when we're only really looking at this, when we're looking at next year's budget. Trustee Shabnam Lotfi also was discussing more about just understanding the bulk of what's going into this, the CIP and the budget. And I don't think Shabnam as trustee is alone in that. I think I hear that from residents too. And that was echoed by Sam. But also what we should look at removing from our budget. And I was keeping those things in mind when I was going through the budget today. So I just want to sort of re-emphasize that
Right.
those were the.
Well, what's on the table now is just the minutes.
Right.
So,
That's what I'm discussing is the minutes. So
right, but are you amending them
No, I'm
or
not.
are you changing them
I'm
in
not.
any way? Then, okay. So are there any amendments or changes proposed to the minutes of October 21st? Hearing none, ready to vote? All those in favor of approving the minutes of October 21st, please say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Those opposed? Abstentions, motion carries. Okay, all right. We're picking up steam here. Here we go. Public comments. Public comments, this is your opportunity to,
What on what?
Anything you want.
okay.
I will point out, it's nobody's fault because you guys are all hard with it, but it's been 45 minutes and it's all been administrative. So I think there could be some long-term work by whomever can contribute to making the most of the time by having more support for these kind of very important but long-winded smoothing before the steam starts. That's my only comment, and I'm sitting here like a fly who has no responsibility. But that's my perception. Visiting a different.
Thank you.
Yep.
Julie, is there any comments online?
We have one person, but I don't see their hand up.
And let's go ahead and move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is the discussion of 2026 proposed budget. So what I would suggest on this is we're going to ask Brian to start off and just talk about the assumptions, an overview of the budget, the assumptions, what's changed in the way that it was prepared this year versus other years. And then after that, we will move into the issue of the levy itself. So Brian, you want to start talking about the budget itself for this year,
Sure.
for next year, sorry.
So this year was an interesting process for us preparing the new budget. Obviously, there's a lot of factors going on behind the scenes that were influencing the timing and what we had the abilities to get done. Some of what Mark just mentioned, assumptions that went into this year's budget. One of the variables that was being worked on behind the scenes this year was our police union negotiation for the next 3 years. So that matter, we began discussions early summer, just put the final pieces on the agreement at our last board meeting. We did try to heed the advice of the police ad hoc committee that was formulated in late 2024 and concluded earlier this year with some of the approaches to what we could offer. We did come to an agreement. So the wage increase for the police union contract was 8%. So initially that was thought to be maybe a little large related to where our budget capacity was, but we had done some research on some of the moving pieces behind the department and were able to get that to fit into the budget parameters due in part to some of the resets in employee wages and promotions to fill some of the vacancies that occurred. So we were able to handle that. We had new allotments for benefits across the board for staff. And then the general employee wage increases, which were incorporated. And so some of the thought process with the employee wages and the way that was handled and looked at from a preparation standpoint is any adjustment that happens into the police union we're going to have for management, police staff, as well as the union staff. We're going to try to match that across the board. So the police management staff stay on the village wage scale. And by means of the wage scale adjustment, we want to make sure that the regular employees have a % increase that stays proportionate to that and keeps them on the wage scale as well. So we weren't able to offer our rest of the employees in the village the same percentage increase as what the police receive. But what we're going to do is give the employees roughly the 5% increase, which then puts them on the scale. We will give the management police staff an additional step on the wage scale. This keeps everyone in alignment together on the proposed wage scale. Those numbers were within the capacity of the village. I left the sheet on my desk in haste of coming down here, which had a little bit more of the specifics, and Julie may be able to speak to this from memory, and I hate to put her on the spot, but the overall increase, I believe, to the general fund budget, even with that percentage increase for both components, came in at less than 3%
Are you
for
talking for the
general fund.
payroll as a whole, or are you talking?
Payroll as a whole, like where did we end up with that number for? I'm blanking on the percentage. I wanted to say it was less than a
It was.
3% general
I
fund.
have, excuse me, if you want me to look quickly, I can access.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm so sorry.
No,
I
can
left the
find it.
sheet on my desk.
So help me understand what you just said. So you're
Sure.
saying 8% police
Police.
wage increase,
We're-
and you're saying 5% non-police wage increase.
Correct.
But yet, as it hits payroll, all in, it really equals only a 3% pay increase.
From last year's budget.
From
But it's
last year's
3% payroll increase.
to the general fund budget over last year.
Okay. And that's because reductions in other
In employee.
staff count.
Staff count, staff resets, and where people were promoted to fill departing staff at higher wages. So we were able to get a little bit of cost savings there that we were able to prioritize giving back to employees, but not having it detrimentally hit the budget in a negative way from a much higher percent standpoint over last year.
But then once you fill the vacancies, we're going to see more of an increase. Or does the 3% overall payroll increase include the expected payroll of bringing somebody else in at the bottom level?
Exactly,
Okay.
So
exactly.
I do it. Would you like me to share my screen?
Yeah, actually, if you've got it, that would be great. It would help.
Here.
Can I ask a question while she's doing that?
Yeah.
Do you, I know your notes are upstairs for good reason, but what's the overall reduction in headcount and how is that split between police and non-police?
Reduction in headcount, I think we have a status quo employee headcount from last year. I don't think there is a reduction.
Even though you've lost people, that doesn't.
So where we had savings is that a number of the new employees that we brought on in the village have elected not to take the village's health insurance for various reasons. So there's a significant cost savings with some of the newer employees, some of the younger employees in particular, who haven't had the need to go on to family plans or single plans due to coverage that they have through other means at the present time. So a significant amount of the village savings is coming from those choices.
Okay, so
Is that
given-
what's,
I'm sorry.
sorry, Julie. I just
Go
want-
ahead. Maybe Julie wants to speak to the
No, I
screen.
have a question.
Yeah, if you don't mind, because I don't have clarity. I thought I did, but I don't. So if the police are going up 8% and the employees are going up 5%, but the overall increase is 3%. That's but there's no reduction in headcount. Is that is the reason we're able to get 3% even with those wage increases solely due to the benefits?
No.
Not completely just benefits, but Julie, do you want to speak to?
I
the
can talk to
SMB
this a
sheet?
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, be great.
So we have keep in mind, this wasn't meant to be shared in public. This is a working document. I need to fill in numbers on the right, but if you look to the left there, these are the actual salaries and benefits that are in our budget. This represents the PD contract, so that's only the union officers are getting an 8% raise. All other employees we're doing a 5% cost of living adjustment to our wage scale because it hasn't been bumped up. And this is something that's being presented to the board. I believe, is it this month, Brian, or next month? I believe it's this month.
No,
Or-
next month's.
The upcoming, I'm sorry, I'm a month off,
Yeah.
yeah, at the next board meeting. So if you look, you can see that, we have these broken out by fund. fund accounting is confusing to people because it's only a governmental thing. The general fund's the only thing that's really affected by taxes, okay? So what this ended up doing, it's a 3% increase overall. If you can see this number here. And then if we go down here, it's broken out by departments. You can see how much each department went up. And then as far as how much wages and benefits went up in the general fund, it was only 1.2%. The reason for this is we have a wage scale with steps, right? 1 through 11. So what happened is because we had so much turnover, so we had Jeff Farrow, and I don't know what steps everybody is at, but let's just say Jeff Farrow was at, these are hypothetical. He was at step 10 because he'd been chief for so long. Jamie took his spot. She is now at step 8.
Okay.
Then she was a lieutenant that was up here. Dodsworth came in, he's at lower, and so on and so forth. And so there's like this trickle down effect that was able to allow this to happen. And very similar stuff happened in the administrative department. David Sykes left. He had been here forever. He was at toward the very high end of his scale. We created new placeholders, new positions. Chrissy started less because she didn't have that experience yet. So it's just like Ben's trickle down. Then Chrissy's replacement is coming in where she had years and years of experience as a deputy. A new person starting at step 1. Administrative assistant, the same thing. Somebody left. So I guess in a way the village benefited from this turnover, but you've also seen what it's done to us being able to meet needs. Right now, we're at 50% staff, so that, I mean, that doesn't affect budgeted numbers, but it's gonna show, it's also, things like this is like all these steps where there were gaps in between. We have a lot of new officers that are very young. So they're at the beginning of the step. The same thing happened. So we've kind of done it on the backs of the employees, but it's also, I mean, we're at 50% staff now, so it's does that kind of make sense to how that whole trickle down thing? We do have a wage scale that we could show, but it's not.
So we're trying to address factors and stay consistent with what the police ad hoc committee wants, which is raise our police salaries so that we are not towards the bottom of Dane County. We are trying to address that. We want to have staff retention, staff appreciation. And we're also losing ground to communities that have gone to referendum recently, like Maple Bluff, who had a sizable adjustment to all wages for across all departments, and then have built-in percentage increases. I think theirs is 3% this year on the heels of what they just adjusted last year through referendum significantly. So what we're trying to do this year is just not do a step increase for staff other than the management police department, but just do a wage cost of living across the board grid adjustment this year to coincide with the timing of the police union contract, and do a 5% adjustment to the scale, keep everybody in the same grade, same step, just adjust the scale so that we don't lose continued ground to some of these other competing communities. And I know we can't fix everything, but we tried to do as much as we could to keep us within a range of our nearest competitor.
Also, I mentioned, Brian, that the police contract, we also contracted for 27 and 28.
Yeah, it's a three-year contract and has, I believe it was 2% base adjustments for the
subsequent years. So it's 8% in 26, 2% in 27, 2% in 28 for the police union contract.
So aside from that, some of the other issues that we had working on in the background, we just finished a garbage and refuse or refuse and recycling, contract that we just signed at the last board meeting. You'll see some of the adjustments to that account within the general budget overall. And this year, one of the changes, one of the approaches that we did differently. In the past, we had dedicated the entirety of the small cap fund borrowing to be incorporated within the levy. That for 2026 is $43,000. This year, we took the small cap away from the levy. We're going to utilize our reserves to cover the small cap balance, and that freed up an additional amount, the same corresponding amount of 43,000 to be utilized in operational uses across the rest of the budget. Again, I mentioned at the board meeting, our budgets are tied to net new construction annually. Our net new construction percentage this year was 0.4%. It amounted to roughly $9,000 in additional levy capacity that we could apply to our levy this year. Obviously, 9,000 across a budget of this size for even our small village is not going to adjust and be able to keep up with all the various needs. So that's where the small cap thought process came in for doing that differently this year. We were able to get everything to fit within the parameters, but we did, and you will note and notice on the budget, we did have some contingency built in, taking from our reserves this year to leave a little bit of additional wiggle room for some of those unintended, potentially possible changes related to benefits. If someone does have a life-changing event, they need to suddenly take the village insurance or take a family plan, or there's a corresponding departure and a new hire that's different than the predecessor's plan options. So lots of moving pieces. I'm happy to try to answer additional questions, but that's kind of a quick glimpse into some of the thought processes and considerations that made up the bulk of our new budget.
Yeah, so when you look at the general fund, you go down to the bottom line on the revenues, you'll see there's $93,000 that's needed to close the gap between revenues and expenses on the general fund. 50,000 of that was to do that, and this 43,000, which makes up then the 93,000, was the funding of the small cap. So basically saying, here's our revenues, here's our expenses, there's this shortfall. We're taking basically $93,000 out of our unassigned fund balance that we have and applying 50,000 of that to close the gap and another 43,000 to top off the small cap fund.
Where is, I looked for this today and I can't figure it out. Where is the unassigned fund and how much money is in it?
I'm sorry, in where?
Yeah, unassigned fund. How much money do we have in the unassigned fund?
Which I didn't bring my notes with me, but Julie, you, at the end of last year, wasn't it about $1.4 million, I think, is what that,
It's in my budget book and I don't have my budget book.
Okay, so but it isn't, it doesn't show up on what I.
It is not a fund, it's the fund balance.
right,
So at the end of every year, in each fund, all the funds are pulled out separately. It's revenues minus expenses, and that gets put into the fund balance. So if we have a surplus, the fund balance goes up.
Oh, okay.
If we have a deficit, the fund balance goes down. Over the last several years, we have had surpluses. The main reason for the surpluses are staffing has been erratic, but another really big thing is the interest on investments. We had money sitting in there that we had borrowed for the University Avenue project, and Madison was very slow in billing us. So we had some pretty good interest coming in, which was above budget, because you can't necessarily budget. We were expecting to spend that money and it stayed in our bank accounts longer. So what pumped us up over the last several years is no longer there and we can't rely on it. So that's why our fund balance has been like slowly growing from what I've seen. Granted, I've been here since 23, so I've only been here for a couple audits. But those were the two major factors that like stand out. There's other things, but that's the main ones.
so Brian just handed me the the latest estimates. So at the end of last year, which was the only time we know precisely what our fund balance was, the unassigned portion was $1,458,000. Okay. And then if you deduct from that the 25 budget that was needed to apply to the 25 budget in order to balance it, was about $37,000 that we would need to take away from the unassigned fund balance to get 25 budget to balance. And then in 26, that $93,000 that we would need to take out of the unassigned fund balance to get the 26 budget to balance, which leads us to an estimate at the end of next year, the end of 2026, a unassigned fund balance of $1,327,000, which as a percentage of our budgeted expenses for 2026, plus the debt levy, comes out at 27.4%. So if you recall, our financial policy suggests that we try to stay within 15 to 25% of that budget expenses, general fund expenses plus the debt levy, and we're now at 27%, so somewhat higher than that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well,
The end of what year were you estimating 27%?
2020.
you have here it's 27.4
In 20, at the end of 20.
at the end of 26.
And this is all unaudited numbers, so these are estimates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So another way to think about that is that if that all turns out to be the case, that the end of 2026, that 27.4% represents about $118,000 over our 25% cap. So, and it represents almost $600,000 over our 15% minimum. So we've got this 15 to 25% range, and we'd be operating, as I say, 118,000 over the top of the range and 602,000 over the bottom of the range, if all those projections and estimates turned out to be correct. That's probably more than you wanted to know on that subject, but nevertheless, Gloria.
Actually not. I've been asking for this information for a long time, and so I really appreciate that you have come through. I want to capture what you just said, and I want to restate what you said just to make sure that I'm crystal clear. So first of all, we throw around the idea, the phraseology fund balance a lot. Sometimes we're doing general funds, sometimes we're doing unassigned fund. And so for clarity, a lot of funds. We've got cost accounting, different funds, this fund, public works, police, we've got a lot of funds. So regarding only the unassigned fund balance,
right,
it is 100% funded by surplus when we are under budget at the end of the year and we are closing out. Any surplus funds this unassigned fund balance. Conversely, if there is a deficit, that's when we call it a rainy day fund, and we grab money in order to plug holes. So we call it sometimes in meetings our rainy day fund. So that would be apropos for that.
It also
So
serves as our working capital fund because
it's also
the
our working
timing of our
capital.
cash flows
So
throughout the year.
that's good
Rainy
because
day fund and working capital fund.
Thank
That's
you.
what it really
So-
represents.
thank you, because again, we call these different things, they're synonyms, but I don't think everybody understands that. But I think unassigned fund balance is funded by surplus. It's reduced by deficit. And at the end of last year, per the audit of 2024 books, we had $1,458,000 as of December 31st. We take away the 2025 budget deficit of 37,000. We take away the anticipated deficit of 93,000 for 2026, and we arrive at an anticipated expected new fund balance of unconfirmed numbers, but a new anticipated 1,327,000 projected on a unassigned fund balance. So we also have these, we have these targets. We have a 25% target what the percent of expenditures plus the debt levy should hit at. Our target rate is 25%. We're currently at 27.4%. So we are in excess of our target, which means that we are at either, if the low end of the range is 15%, so we're either at 602 over after on those anticipated numbers, we're at 602,000 over, or we are at $118,000 over if we're hitting that target. But in any case, we've got some play here anticipated for next year,
We do,
right?
we do.
Thank you.
Problem.
Hi, Sean.
Yes,
This is super helpful. The 27.4% is the unassigned fund balance over what? What's the denominator?
over the 2026 budgeted expenses plus the 2026 debt levy. Because if you recall, you may recall several years ago, we removed the debt levy from the general fund as a revenue source and put it directly in the debt fund. Okay, so normally we would just say the calculation is the unassigned fund balance over the budgeted expenses. But in this case, we need to add back that debt levy, which we had previously removed.
Got it.
So,
Thank you.
okay,
That's super.
okay.
And we're hoping to fix the language about that.
Yeah, we have some issues in the financial policy because the financial policy still says this calculation is done over the budgeted expenses. And that was fine when the debt levy was part of those budgeted expenses. But it is no longer, it's in its own fund. So it's just a correction that needs to be made and will be made, but we'll take that up at the next meeting. So that's kind of what's going on the unassigned funds balance, the big picture on that. Other things, Brian, that you wanted to address or Liz?
Just little things. I just, there are some typos here, just in case you want to fix them. Did you see them or?
No, yeah, this is the first draft, I guess, really of the budget, and we will continue. I think they will continue to look at it and
So
clean
Julie,
things up. So
that second page with the green at the top where it says Village of Shorewood Hills Expenditure Summary 2026 Budget. It just across the top, it's 2023, and I think the next one should be 2024, not 2022.
yeah, that's what I pointed out to you this morning, Brian. Yeah,
And then I think it's the same page, or somewhere there's Public Works. Yeah, I just couldn't figure this out. So if you go down there, Public Works, it says that the percent change is up 27.07%.
Where are you at, please? What page? No, what page?
It says 8 of 31 on. that
Gotcha.
one.
The expenditure summary.
And what are you looking at, please?
You go down about a certain way down, just as Public Works.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, at the very end, it says percentage change 27.07%. I could be embarrassed when it's up there. And it shows an increase of 170,000 in Public Works. I don't think that's right. I think it's only up about 36,000. So isn't this automatically generated? It makes me nervous.
that's got to be a mistake.
It's probably an Excel
That's gotta be a
spreadsheet.
mistake.
Excel.
Right, I
Good
figured.
catch.
My favorite lawyer.
Hey, poor Marilyn.
No. Maryland's a working lawyer. I'm just trying to figure.
I will double check that formula. Thank you.
Yeah, there's something definitely wrong there. Any others?
I don't know, that's
You
just,
know what? It looks like I'm betting it's linking back to.
because other ones weren't.
I'm
other
betting
ones
it's
were
linking
right.
back a column.
Okay.
You're right. We'll fix that one. Thank you. I need somebody to look at this because I was cranking this out on Friday afternoon. So thank you.
Well, so is Brian finished with his presentation?
Yeah, that was just kind of a general overview of more or less the general fund, but utilities and whatever we can speak to at whatever point.
Well, I guess
we
if
spend
it's Q&A time, I do have questions.
Sure.
just really low level questions. Page 9 of 31 is one of the pages that references in the second row, pilot, right underneath property taxes. What does that mean?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Gotcha. Okay, village property sales. Further down in that same category, I see that there were no village property sales in 2025, and it makes me think to how do we generate revenues? And there's been so much emphasis on selling this piece of property, but there are these easements throughout the village that are right next to people's homes that people enjoy having as part of their property. And what about having those surveyed and offered for sale to the people who are already enjoying them, to take it off of our books as an asset? It's not huge. It's not $2 to $3 million, but take it off of our books as assets and put it onto somebody else's books to help with property tax generation.
Julie?
Okay, two different things. The sale of village property is not referring to necessarily real estate.
I know,
It's like
know.
if we sell vehicles and
I know.
stuff. And
That's what $17,000 I'm assuming is a police car.
No, actually, most of the time when you see things being sold, it's in the capital fund.
Okay,
Just so there was sale of property, but it's in the capital fund. So I just
Okay,
wanted to make sure
thanks.
you knew that was there.
right. And I
But
know that
what
we
you're
do
saying
sell
about
police
property is that's-
cars. Right. And so I'm not quibbling about the $1,000, whatever. I mean, I saw someplace else it was 17,000, but I'm asking the question to get back to what people have said. What about different things that we can do? And of course, it's not, you sell the property. You know, that's a one trick pony, I think is what you called it, right? But it does help with property taxes too. And there's no reason for us to have these wedge-shaped properties right next to or right between two houses when we aren't planning on using it for sidewalks. And I believe that it's gone in front of the board where it has been proposed to have it surveyed in a couple cases to use for a sidewalk. And folks were very unhappy about that. And I think, okay, then sell it. So as an idea, also, so, I mean, Mark, do you want to say something on that or?
No, I haven't thought of it, to be honest, and I'd have to talk to make sure that land isn't reserved for any other potential use. The utilities, don't have something running underground there, there's not sewers running underground there or anything like that.
I just remember when Tracy Bailey was on the board, she was looking at this.
Yeah.
And I
I
remember,
don't recall it, but
yeah, I remember, and
Yeah,
I remember
something
people
we could
No,
find
got
out.
pretty heated.
A question from another village resident on the same topic previously, and
Okay.
that's just curious. I think more or less it was one area of the village where it was probably one of our Forrester Patrick or something was doing some maintenance work, or public works crew was doing some maintenance, and they were questioning, why are you doing it? And it turned out it was our land, but it was right next to, in a very like a sliver piece, just around the corner of somebody else's property that most people probably just assume was their property.
Right, and I just feel like, let's clean it up. It's either the villages or it's not. And yeah, so the other thing is building permits. Craig Weinhold, I heard at the last board meeting, making some really interesting suggestions. For example, wheel tax, which we've already discussed in this committee. But he also said about building permits, and I don't know what the building permit fees are. I pulled building permits. I don't remember what it was, but it seems like, are we looking at increasing our fees at all? And would that be through this committee, or is it in a different committee that would be explored? Or is it only explored at the board level, or is it only explored on admins, like in upstairs with administrative? I don't know how this works.
Yeah, it definitely has to be approved by the board and it
Mhm.
has come before the board. I can't remember, maybe DeMar, you remember whether it originated in a committee or whether it just came directly to the board when we adjusted those schedules. Also, that work is now contracted out. It used to be the village did it, right? So
Correct.
the issue would be if we're working with a third-party contractor, how would those fees work in that situation?
That one in particular might be something we'd have to work with GEC to work out a change related to that and the way they collect the fees now for the building permits, but all the other fee schedule items definitely could be. I don't see why there would be an issue to have it be reviewed.
I guess I'm confused though, because Craig made it, like, maybe I didn't understand Craig, because it sounded like he was saying when we're going in and we're getting these permits or zoning or whatever it is, we're going in, we're spending a lot more money than is being collected to cover the expenditures. So are we paying the inspectors? I mean, how does that work? Like when I pull a permit,
I don't specifically remember how he phrased it, so there's a zoning permit review for home plans, additions, new home projects. And then there's the building permit issuance, which has a fee associated with it. The building permit itself is being done through GEC, and I believe they are collecting the fees associated with that and potentially paying us a portion of the difference. But the zoning permit reviews, there's associated consultant reviews going on simultaneous to that. If I need assistance, I'll ask our town and country engineering team to help take a look at some of the specifics related to those plans, or our village planner at Vanderwall might assist in reviewing some questions related to the project designs. So I think the consultant, I think what he's saying is probably the consultant fees are going up and we're not collecting enough to make up the difference of those increased costs. I don't specifically remember how he phrased it, but I'm guessing it might be what he was saying.
well, and again, I don't know if that's something germane to this committee, or is it a different committee? But it-
Revenues.
Because it feels like it's not really being addressed at the committee level anymore. Like it doesn't, I don't know.
I think historically it's been in services, but I don't know whether it's there currently now or not.
So that's what I was looking through when I warned you, Mark, I was doing this.
That's all right. That's perfectly
Oh, hold on,
fine.
it's hard for me to do the
Liz?
computer thing.
Yes,
The question is, and it says page 13 of 21 at the bottom. And it's really, the 3,422,500,000, which is the debt. But it's labeled a village hall capital outlay. And it's that particular wording that I'm wondering, what are we getting?
yeah, and I think that was wording that we had previously decided as a committee should be made more generic.
CIP, these are GL.
It was in the CIP, that's,
So,
yeah.
it's the GL account that's tied to the CIP.
But wouldn't we want to carry that same language over to the budget?
Just change our GL account names randomly. So
No,
it
you
got put in
can't.
there to match our CIP. If we decide ultimately that we're gonna spend it on something other than, it's basically, it's just it's capital outlay
Right.
that's in the village hall's capacity. It's under the admin department. It's not under public works. It's not under, so it's just kind of, it's something that, I mean, I'm sure it's been there for a long time.
I'm sure it has, but we probably want to think about that more generically as a facilities capital budget rather than a specific facility.
And that would be a CIP thing more than, I doubt I will change names of general fund
Okay.
accounts because that would really make the auditors upset.
Right.
I'm just thinking this particular year that.
Right, but that's the
That
thing
could
where,
upset people.
well, I
It's
can't
a
change
general
fund
ledgers. It
accounts.
is what it is. I mean, yeah.
Or
So back on page 11 of 31, committees operating expenses, what I take that line in the first section to mean, committees OpEx.
Which
for the
one?
village
Page-
board.
Page one more time, Gloria.
So page 11 PDF of 31. No, you're not, you're looking at the hard copy. It's on PDF.
Is it a budget one?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what it says on the bottom?
Is it 3? Thanks. Anyway, committee's operating expenses, what I take that to mean for the village board. I don't know if the committee's operating expense carries through to other committees like the finance committee, or if there's a different line item for operating expense. But again, I'm going to point out and that our committees didn't used to be professionally staffed. And I can see a really good reason for the finance committee, and of course the board, right? Of course the board, to be professionally staffed. But
These don't include wages. These are things like mailings, things like that. It's like.
printing out paper and putting out the notices, and that's fine and
Well,
good.
it's not even that. We don't even break that out. It's most of, I can go and tell you what that was.
I don't need to know. My
but
point,
we don't even break out those kind of things.
excellent, thank you. But that's not the point I'm making. The point I am making is that today's meeting is, what time did the meeting start, by the way, just to address what Mr.
20 something.
5:23.
5:23, so 20 minutes of the 45 minutes was spent on nothing. And so I do want to address on that. But when we are staffing these meetings, there is an expense to having someone come to the parks meeting, to come to the recreation meeting, to go to the pool committee meeting. And not only is there a cost associated with salary and benefits when people are staffing these meetings, but there's also a cost in terms of what's not getting done upstairs. And the fact that you all ideally, I think, are hoping for 40 hours a week, and you are having to do your 40 hours a week job, because by staffing these meetings, the workload upstairs did not diminish. If anything, it is increased. And I'm going to say again, some of these committees used to run just fine with the chair of the committee taking notes or assigning someone else to take the notes. And really, I am asking you to please consider stopping that process that only began within the last 3 years, 5 years.
It's because.
But
of
Julie,
Facebook.
oh,
And it's the electronic.
yeah, but
part.
does Facebook really need to watch the
Zoom.
Okay, I'm not
Oh.
going to litigate this with
No,
you,
I don't
Julie.
agree either, but
I am making a statement right now. And I'm saying that we have a lot of committees that are being professionally staffed, and that costs time and it costs money. And it's really unnecessary, in my opinion, when you're taking away from upstairs work. And I hear you that it needs to be posted on Facebook. And I'm going to really argue against that, because this whole all meetings have to be posted on Facebook is new. And the world is not going to stop if it is not posted on Facebook to have the recreation committee. I'm picking on Andy's committee. You know, the world is not going to stop if everybody doesn't know what's going on in the recreation committee, and they can go down to the village hall or log on themselves and watch the committee meeting themselves if it's that important. That's how folks used to do it, and it worked out. So.
Marilyn?
I want to echo that, and that this is a fairly recent phenomenon of having staff take minutes at all the meetings. And I recall an interchange with our last administrator who told me that staff needed to do the minutes a certain way and residents could not handle that. And I said, most residents in this village are master's degrees. Almost everyone has a college degree. And I am very concerned about staff creep. We now have at least 23 full-time employees with wages going up, police 8%, others 5%. That doesn't even address the benefits. This is simply not sustainable. So I think from a financial standpoint, we have to get back to our thoughtful, well-educated, very capable residents handling the meetings, number one. Number two, a second reason to do that is we cannot wear out staff. Staff having to go to all these minutes meetings, even though they say, oh, no, this is fine, we can do it. And I've heard them say it, is that no, that is a waste of staff time. Number two. Number three, the chairs of those committee meetings, and I know when I chaired many meetings, I would call people, make sure they could show up for another meeting, show up for the meeting. Enough of this Google. By the time you decide who can show up and who can't show up, then suddenly people can't show up and you have to go back. I think it's very inefficient. And I would check with my committee and see, all right, when can you show up? We'd have personnel at 7 a.m. People would show up, we'd do the minutes, and we'd get on with it. So I think it is simply not sustainable. It's going to drain not only money, but energy. And there's going to come a time where we have to figure out, can we continue to finance the number of staff we have? And I think before we get to that dramatic decision, if it comes, we have to be careful about the time we're requesting of staff and the minutia of duties that can be done by someone else. So that's been a constant concern of mine ever since. Certainly in the previous presidency, I know the president would go in the meetings and redo the minutes. But that's neither here nor there. We have to get back to resident input. And also this small community of 2,500 people, we have survived because of our volunteers. And you give people a role, they can handle it. The other thing they say, well, they don't get minutes out so fast. Well, staff doesn't get minutes out so fast. Last meeting, staff was very busy. We didn't have the finance committee minutes. If one of the volunteers did it, those minutes would have been there. But getting back to our budget, I did have a question, just looking at the summary, Brian, notice of public hearing, the proposed budget. I see general property taxes, and then intergovernmental is, just go down and tell me again, what is the intergovernmental? Is that what comes from the state of revenues? That is, you're nodding. And then licenses and
It's right
permit.
here. It's on page 7 of 31.
Okay,
Can you give the bottom line?
Yeah, what was the page on that?
okay, and then, all right.
So she's looking at
7 of
this.
20.
It doesn't have a page number on the bottom. The notice of public hearing.
Okay,
And I'm referencing page 7 of 31 on the PDF, which also doesn't have a page number. So
But so then the public charges, they're broken down on what page?
which
Right.
one?
When it says in the summary of the proposed budget, we have public charges, 156,000 and some change for 2025.
It's under public charges right here.
And that's page what?
It's page 7 on the PDF. There is no page number at the bottom. If you touch that screen, it's a tactile screen, so you won't have things change. That's why that's doing it.
Revenues?
So this is revenues. So you were looking at public charges. That's a revenue item. See how it's under revenues?
Well,
They just
no,
call it
I
that.
see that.
They just
So,
call it that.
You mean,
They're calling it public charges.
well, right, so you mean we're getting,
But we
You
are
know,
charging the public.
oh, this is what we're charging them. Oh, okay, I see, all right, I totally. Then let me ask another question on, the rent, where was that? We had it at,
Rent received.
correct,
That's on page 9 of 31 on the PDF.
What page?
9 of 31 on the PDF. And
Budget. Or 21.
We're talking about the 136,938
Is that
figure
right?
for
Yeah.
2026.
I don't know. I'm looking at a different page. I'm looking on page 9 of 31, which is,
Nine, no, I have 9 of 21, so that's something.
It's this, it's.
What
general
page?
gov-
It would
general
be really-
government revenue.
yeah.
Mine says 931, so. It's right after those things that start with that are.
Are you looking at 1 of 21, this one right here? Were you looking at a different rent received?
Oh, yes, this is, let me ask, if we had EOY estimated 150,000. Is that for 2025?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
UI is the projection for the full year 2025.
Correct.
So there's a piece of this that's in excess to the base rent received for Blackhawk for 2024. For 2025. This involves a financing of the parking lot that was being updated that we had some overlap with. And Julie, I'm blanking on, I know we covered this when we were last speaking, and I hate to put you on the spot again, but
Yeah, I don't have my notes in front of me. There is revenue coming in from when we.
These are my
redid
notes.
the
We
parking lot.
resurfaced.
We resurfaced it a lot.
Yeah, 930.
In 25.
Project,
So
we
this is
resurfaced
page one.
Blackhawk.
okay.
Or
Just
20
economies
25
of scale.
Yep.
You know,
25 is the end of it.
Yep, that was the
Thank you,
difference.
Jennifer.
All right.
Thank you,
This is
yeah.
what I had.
Jogging my
So-
memory.
So we had what? We had,
The
And then is that-
resurfacing agreement where Village did some work at Blackhawk and they still had to repay it. So last year is the last payment associated with that. Which is why we have a little higher than what we anticipated revenue.
okay.
So there's just a cost sharing, even though it's our property, there's a cost sharing on this.
Correct.
All right, at this point, do you want to turn to talk about the levy a little more specifically? Pivot a little bit off the overall overview of the budget itself and talk about what the levy calculations are on those sheets.
Sure. So let me just get my notes. So, question that Marilyn just asked, aside from the general property taxes, which we somewhat covered a little bit of the difference there earlier in the budget conversation, the intergovernmental revenues that you see are primarily tied to state aid and shared revenue amounts. So the updated figures are shown. I believe we got a little bit higher in the state highway fund revenues this year. Actually, I think it says it on maybe not specific, but that I think was where we got a little bit higher than anticipated. I think more or less licenses, permits we're anticipating the same, fines about the same, public charges to be about the same, a little bit of additional revenue. I think where some of the increases related to things like the little bits of increases at Blackhawk and some of the other various increases at the police department and some of the other charges we normally have. Expenses, I don't know from a review standpoint, I know we had the new the new refuse contract. That's a little bit higher for next year, what we have anticipated to spend related to that. We just see to the parks and forestry. I don't immediately recall what the difference was in the proposed budget difference on that. Public Works, we did add a little bit of additional money to. We haven't had in the past a placeholder for street maintenance and some of the various other maintenance projects like sidewalk repairs. We hear from residents very regularly, hey, I'd like you to address the condition of our sidewalk near our property. In the past, the village hasn't had the budget capacity to give the Public Works accrue some money. We tried to set it aside in the 2025 budget. We ended up having to cut it out. We just didn't have enough money to go around. So we just put a little bit of a placeholder in for Terry to address some of those regularly encountered, and we hear about them quite often during the course of the year, to just start making a plan to address some of those various improvements. But all in all, I mean, the budget, we try to do as close to as lean a budget as we can for the sake of adjustments. We try to keep department heads to keep their figures somewhat to the same as last year, with some moving around of numbers within their department to better adjust and better reflect the end of year figures. But there's not a lot of changes year to year that you're seeing in our budgets. They're mostly close in some capacity to the prior.
Laura?
I have a question regarding the major capital fund, which is on my PDF 22 of 31. I don't know what the paper is. I can figure it out real quick. So that here it is, major capital fund on page 13 of 21 on paper. On PDF, it's 22 of 31.
Yep.
And the question I have is, coming back to last week, the CIP discussion, I recall there was the discussion about the $125,000 for the community center that Marilyn was wanting to make sure that it doesn't get lost on that page. And then at the subsequent board meeting, I heard it not called the community center. I heard it called the pool parking lot. And so can you please just clarify, is it the community center? Is it the pool parking lot?
See which.
Yeah.
Mark,
it's-
I'm asking
It's
you.
on the, yes, and it's on page 22, Brian.
Of 31 on the
Of the
PDF.
electronic version.
And it's on page 13 of 21 on the paper.
It's actually page 14 for that particular item. So on that page 14, you go down and as you say, it's
Oh, yeah, you're right.
rec facility improvements, and it's 125,000. And I think where that number came from is there's about $90,000 left of the, earlier this year, we resurfaced part of the parking lot. Okay. We didn't get the whole parking lot done. So there's about $90,000 worth of resurfacing yet to be done to complete the resurfacing of the entire pool parking lot. So that's my understanding of the largest part of that $125,000. And then beyond that, there was $75,000 in the capital budget this year for the pool. And most of that was for the design and planning work with respect to the community center, with the community center building, I should say, and with particularly the first floor. And a study was done by Raymaker and Findorf that assessed the condition of that pool, and that was like $27,000. And so the balance between what was budgeted in the capital budget, the $75,000 for this year, and the $27,000 that was actually spent this year on the Findorf and Raymaker work, is what is then added to the approximately $90,000 to get you in that ballpark. That's the way I understand that. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I think that $125,000 has two pieces. Part, it's to get the rest of the pool parking lot resurfaced next year, and part of it is to continue the planning process with respect to the community center building, whether it's a renovation down the road or a replacement down the road. It's to fund that planning process.
And that is part of the CIP we voted on last week. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a carryover from the 25 CIP that was not spent, plus the allocation specific to 2026.
so that clarifies to me why during finance we were calling it the community center, but then later at the board meeting, I heard you calling it the pool parking lot, because it's a little bit of both.
It is.
Okay.
It is, but
Fair
that's,
enough.
that's what that 125
So
represents.
my next question is regarding the TID number 3.
Yep.
And we call it TID, we call it TIF. It's either tax incremental districting TID or it's tax incremental financing TIF. But it's again, one of these synonyms that folks don't know that when you're calling it a TID, you're also calling it a TIF. TIF is a TID, TID is a TIF. Okay,
Yeah.
so the TID 3 on the piece of paper, it's page 16 of 21, is called the TIF 3. And we've got a deficit, estimated end of year deficit on the TID. Now, I've been asking since 2024, can we please understand in this committee how these TIDs are working? And I understand that in 3031, we're gonna have, like, the rain is gonna come and it's gonna fuel our crops. Like these TIDs are gonna close and we can dance because the locusts are gone and the corn is gonna grow. But what I don't really understand is why are we losing money on the TID?
Well, I'm not sure that I can answer that question, but the Joint Board of Review is meeting next month. The 2024 annual review of the TIDs has been prepared by Van de Wall, or outside consultants. That has not been released to us yet, but it will be. And when it is, it'll be posted to the website, hopefully in the next week or so, because the Joint Review Committee has to meet on that subject. And so that's why I have not scheduled the topic of the TIDs or the TIFs yet, because I expect we will actually have the annual report, which not only is the report of the performance of the TIDs for their history, but also includes the projections of the TIDs to the end of their life. So when we talk about this, the TIDs being dissolved at the end of their lives, which for TID 3 would be 2031, okay, then the tax revenues that have been accumulated in that TID since its foundation, those revenues which have been confined to the TID, what's known as the increment, that will be available to the 4 or 5 taxing jurisdictions, and that's where that windfall comes from.
Right,
So-
but my understanding is that, like, at some point, and this is going way back to
Yeah.
Carl Franz, okay? But Carl Franz, my understanding from his explanation is that the reason we do a TID, the reason the municipalities are all on board with TIDs is because there's a certain period within which 100% of the tax revenues come in to the municipality, and we're not, those taxes aren't going to the school district. They're not going to, look at, we got nodding over here. We got shaking over here. We got nodding over here. Help me.
It's not exactly the way it works. So my understanding of the way the TIDs work is when the TID was created, okay, the tax base at that point in time was frozen, okay? They knew what the property value was
At that time.
collectively within the TID, okay?
Mhm.
So at that point, and going into future years, the taxing jurisdictions, the village, the school district, the
MATC.
MATC and so on.
No, there's 4.
The 4 of them,
Yeah.
right. They all get to continue to collect taxes on the base value
Mhm,
of the property at the time the TID was created.
mhm.
So I'll just make up a number, make it easy. Say that there's $1 million of property value in that TID when the TID was created,
Mhm.
okay? So that $1 million continues to be taxed by the 4 jurisdictions, and that tax revenue goes into their budgets, and it goes into our budget, okay? But what has happened since the time that TID was created with $1 million value? All this development has occurred in that TID, okay? So now that TID, which had a property values of $1 million, is now worth $10 million, okay? That difference between that $1 million and that $10 million, that 10 million, that difference, that $9 million still gets taxed by the 4 jurisdictions, right? But the money stays in the TID. It doesn't leave the TID. And that money is there in order to fund the infrastructure and the development of that area. Okay, so what's happening is that the TID is still, because the commercial value of the property values of that TID is increased, it's generating a lot more tax revenue. But the only portion of that the 4 taxing jurisdictions get to see until the TID is dissolved is that tax on that $1 million base.
And
Okay,
the village,
and we get a share of that. Right. Miss something here?
Well, I think what Cory is asking is, you're concerned about these bottom numbers being negative.
well, so I'm interested in what Mark's saying.
Yeah, so maybe,
When he's
so
done.
if you look at TID 3, right? That page we were just talking about, and you read across the line there and it says property tax revenue,
Right.
right?
Right,
That is the revenue from what's known as the increment.
okay,
That's
The
that
difference.
$9 million being
Mhm.
taxed, but it's staying in the TID. It's being used by the TID to pay down its debt, right? And to pay for the infrastructure development within the TID district, okay? In the property taxes of the village, in particular, the general fund, okay? The general fund, it's 2 million, whatever, X million dollars that are property tax revenues there. It's not broken out, but a portion of that is the taxes on that $1 million, which was the base value of the TID. So we're collecting every year taxes from TID 3,
at the
but
one, at
it's
the
that's
1 million.
only
base.
on the base, so
So
it's
call
only
it
this
the-
much
call it their
money.
Cost basis, but also the state, also the county, also the school district.
They're all
the
getting
big-
their little
they're
bit
all
of piece
off that
from that.
basis. There's a basis.
That's right.
But so, and then the difference stays in the TID. What does that mean when you say it stays in the TID? That they don't have to pay those, instead they can use the money?
So
for
the taxing jurisdictions don't see that money.
Right.
It stays within the TID and the TID funds, and it is used by the TID
So it's
to
in,
pay down the debt that it's incurred as it developed, as the property was developed in the TID. And also, if we put new infrastructure in there, we put new pipes and new sewers and
the
new
village,
electrical.
the municipality puts
Yeah,
those in.
the whole
Okay.
development of that area.
So then, when there's a deficit, going back to 2023, we've got a $3 million deficit. Who pays for that?
That's what I wanted to address, if I can explain.
And please do.
So what you're seeing, keep in mind, this is just revenues over expenses for that year.
Right, that's what
It's not
creates
the
a surplus,
fund balance.
but I know that, but it creates a surplus, it creates a deficit, and
What
it's a
you're not
deficit.
seeing, which is fallen off, is there's a line up there in the revenue section that says proceeds from debt issuance. There was a year where we got all those proceeds in and we had a huge surplus.
So debt, but proceeds from debt issuance, that is, we went and we issued bonds.
And the money came in.
That's
when
right,
that
so
money
that's
came
really
in,
a loan that the
Correct.
taxpayers have to pay back.
The TID paid
The
back.
TID paid it back.
The TID,
So
okay,
what
gotcha.
happens is that shows us a revenue when it happened, which is falling off our chart. So that money came in. So that year we had however many $1 million went into that TID. And this is subtracting it as we're getting the bills, which was planned. We are not allowed by law to have a negative balance in our TIDs.
But it
This is not.
closes.
When it closes.
When it closes, but we all, correct. Correct. So this is something that if you have a chance to watch the joint.
Oh, yeah, I will
That
put
would-
it, I think you should,
They have a
you
spreadsheet.
should just send an invitation to everybody in finance, just so they know.
Okay. I will do
because-
that.
Because, you know, how many times I've heard TID isn't relative to this, but yet here it is hitting the budget.
Correct, but the thing is, the finance committee doesn't really have any control over it.
We don't have any control over any of
until-
this.
Well. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but basically, we don't have a lot of say over the TID because there's TID agreements, and it's the joint review board that can do any changes in the TID. Until until we're getting to the point where the TID's about ready to close, then that's where we can step in and maybe make suggestions. Can we close a year early? Can we, that kind of stuff? But we're at a point right now where we just have to stay the course. We don't have a lot of say. Excuse me, the joint review board has to say if we're gonna, like this TID was extended before I started.
And if we were to issue more bonds to help make sure that we don't close negative. To avoid close, if the village were to do another issuance in order to fund an existing TID, would that be called extending it?
It would have to be for a project. I don't believe we can issue,
So if a TID were open, and there was the development still happening,
correct, but we're
Gotcha.
past that point, so.
right,
yeah,
so that's not the case anymore.
Yeah,
If
okay.
a TID were underperforming towards the end, we could borrow money from another TID, a donor TID.
Okay, so we
Or
can
you could do a
transfer.
30-year extension on
Okay.
the TID.
Okay,
If we're in that circumstances, we'd come up to it.
okay.
So we will meet on the TID specifically at a regular meeting at the end of November, when we will actually have not only these financial statements through 2024, but also the projections for each of the three TIDs out to the end of their lives, 2030, 2031, 2042, or something like that. And we will be able to walk through those numbers.
And when the TID closes at surplus, who keeps that money?
When it closes surplus, that money is shared among the 4 taxing jurisdictions. Okay.
Okay,
And then, as we said, right now, we're only getting the taxes on that $1 million base. We're not getting the taxes on the other $9 million of the value, the increment that's been added. When the TID dissolves, then the entire commercial base, the property values there, let's call it $10 million. Then the 4 jurisdictions can tax that $10 million. So instead of just being able to tax $1 million of property value, we'll be able to get our share of the $10 million of property value.
and that's that
Or-
rainfall,
Yeah,
400,000.
and I think we were like, 27% or something like that, I think is sort of what our share of that tax revenue is. But we will go through all that in excruciating detail in November. Yeah,
When I wasn't part of the finance committee, but I've looked at everything, and this is common in Wisconsin. When we issue debt in a TID, it's general obligation debt.
Yep.
So at that point, it would seem that this committee should have. I don't think we're gonna do that in any of the TIDs that we have, but as a matter of practice, we're talking about what is the finance committee's role in TID, significant role, because the general obligation debt comes from the village, not from the school district, not from, it's not a JRB issue. That's a finance committee
Correct.
recommendation to the board.
we're on the hook for that.
Yeah.
And just to give you a sense of what we're talking about here, the village at the end of last year had about $12.7 million in outstanding debt. Okay, that was the total debt that the village had. Of that, over 8 million of it was in the TIDs. Okay, now it's general obligation. We're on the hook for it, but we're not levying taxpayers for that. The TIDs are using their own tax revenue, right, to pay off that debt. Okay, so when that $8 million, when each of the TIDs pays off their share, for instance, TID 3 might have $6 million of that $8 million. They cannot dissolve the TID as long as they have any contingent or remaining liabilities. So that debt has to be paid off. We expect it will be paid off in 2031. And at that point, any surplus tax revenues, any surplus cash in the TID will be distributed to the taxing jurisdictions. And going forward, that property will be taxed just like any other property within the village among the 4 jurisdictions. Dietmar.
Just one more point of clarifying the issue, maybe not necessarily the philosophy of TIDs. But shall we not forget that a major capital expenditure lives in one of these TIDs that we were obligated to perform, and that's the University Avenue Corridor reconstruction. So whatever the number was, $6.8 million is stuffed into that. And it's very purposeful, right? There's capacity to do it. There is enough of a time horizon to do it. And it made sense based on the valuation of the property by the time this TID has to close. So
Which TID are you talking about, please? Number 3? Okay, thank you. Okay.
So we all, as residents, gained a tremendous benefit for these financial plans that were laid a while ago. And it's often forgotten that the alternative, if those didn't exist, we all would be responsible for that major capital outlay. So let's just be mindful of that. You've been on here long enough.
Oh, we'd be in serious
We'd be-
financial
we'd
trouble
be-
if we
yep.
did three.
Yeah, of the 12.7, roughly $1 million of debt, the only portion of that that's levied on the village is a little over $3 million. So there's $3 million of debt for which the principal and interest that has to be paid every year is levied on the residents, right, to service that debt. But this other big portion, the $8 million, is serviced by the TIDs themselves. So it's really only TID tax revenues that pay that. And that's that big advantage that we all didn't have to pay for that $6 million of the debt service on that $6 million is all coming out of the TID's own property tax revenues.
And the valuation of the TID over
Right.
life, the incremental increase of that.
Well, that's why I thought it was so interesting to look at 2024 and actually discussion in this meeting between Mark and, to a degree, you were sitting here at the time, you were over there at the time. I've got a strange memory. I remember you saying that DMAR had come up with this idea, and it seemed as though it was almost to do with this area of University Corridor. And that's when I asked that it be put onto the agenda, because I was very curious about this area that we're sitting in right now.
Yep.
And what the future plans were that seemed to be percolating about turning this into a TID. And I know we cannot until we close, that we've got, just like Middleton had this problem with.
We've
Thermo
maxed
Fisher.
out our TIDs
That's
pretty
right.
close.
So we have to close first. I'm understanding that, but I know I'm aware of Garden Homes too. And so I was just kind of curious about the forecasting that I think that I had the sense from that meeting that is being discussed. Like, I went in on that discussion. I'd like to know. And I thought that this was actually a really good format to have those kinds of discussions, because then not only are we educated, but anyone in the audience also can help come along with understanding what the TID is, why would we do it? Why would this area be considered for, when I'm pointing out, I don't even know where I am right now. I mean, Shorewood Boulevard going west.
Yeah. University Avenue
University
corridor.
That seems to be very, in large part, one of the driving forces for the development over Post Farm Park, but then differently over at Purchasing Logic. That it really seemed to me to be, let's get rid of this building so that we can open it up to development. And that would be part of an opening TID coming down the road.
So, if we're done with TIDs, can we turn to the, we're not done with
No, I'm
TIDs.
done with this, but I'd like to also move on, but after you.
Well, I was gonna start to pivot to the levy, to talk about the levy a little bit. There's 2 pages in the packet that kind of summarize the levy calculations, and I was hoping Brian or Julie could walk the committee through those numbers a little bit, so to translate the budget into actual levy impact on the residents.
I guess, Mark, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Before Julie or Brian
Yeah.
get into that, I guess just one more point of closure for me. And again, I'm sure this was said at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you very much for putting this together. Thank you for being so thoughtful about this. Thank you for providing a balanced budget and all of this. And I know that it wasn't easy, and I can't imagine that the pains that you guys have gone through. The one thing that, and this is what I'm getting at, one thing, Brian, that we have as a municipality little control over is in terms of protection, police and fire, is the formula that's in place for City of Madison Fire Department that calculates our payments at the end of the year or at a certain point in time of the year for fire protection. So how do you manage to plug something in that's somewhat realistic in terms of what is City of Madison? What do you sense that City of Madison will charge us based on the complicated formula next year to account for? How do you back yourself into that number? Or is it just a little bit of fairy dust and
This was,
here we go.
this was a Julie and David project where we're figuring out and kind of coming up with the idea of how to calculate this for next year. So I don't know if you actually
There
have.
is we have a spreadsheet,
Yep.
that David Sykes just briefed me on before he left. Quickly
Okay.
went through, it's based on equalized values,
Yeah.
population, all these different things.
Population growth for city of
We,
Madison.
so David and I sat down, threw in our estimate. And then actually just today, like at midday, I got the estimate from the Madison Fire Department.
Okay,
And we tied out pretty close. I mean, like close enough for the budget. It was, maybe $1,000, a few $100 off. I mean, it was pretty close. So yeah, we have to run that every year, then we fine tune it. A lot of times, the preliminary budget doesn't have the final number, and then we'll plug it in when it literally comes in at the end of October, beginning of November every year.
so serendipitously, that came in today.
It
It's
did.
pretty close.
It is
And it's
very, very
the
close.
projected cost for 2026.
It's based, yeah, it's based on 25 equalized values.
Yep.
And then we get billed for it in 26.
Got it.
And we just paid our bill for 25, so,
Yep.
and we tied out with that
Last-
as well.
The last 40.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much.
I don't know, I can't give you the details of the formula.
This is all I wanted to know.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I'll turn to the levy.
Sure. So on I don't know what page this is on, but we have a previous year actual versus proposed tax levy summary for the 2026 budget. And I apologize for not. having-
31.
It's the last two
Okay,
pages of the
two pages,
packet.
Yeah. So on the right, you'll see what last year's budget is, and you'll see what the proposed changes are for this upcoming year, 2026 budget. So you can see our total 2025 levy amount, the 3,540,000 figure, and the levy increase of 70,944. I will mention that there's a difference in the 2025 total assessed value in the village. When compared to the 2024 total assessed value, it's roughly, I think it came out to about $13-14 million difference in that calculation, which is accounting for the UW Credit Union dropping off the tax parcel in 2026. The tax parcels list as being a tax exempt property, which accounts for the difference.
Where are you looking, please, exactly?
I think it's the last page of the packet,
Okay,
and it's page 31. And right now, we're focusing on the left-hand side of the page, which is the proposed 2025 tax levy on the right column.
see it now, the
Is-
equalized value,
okay.
thank you. I didn't see it
Okay.
before at all.
Can I ask you a
Gotcha.
question?
Talking about,
Or, let me wait.
Yeah, go
It's
right
clarifying.
ahead.
So I thought that, you might just tell me I'm wrong and then we can move on. I thought the assessment ratio played into that drop.
Assessment ratios on the page before, at the bottom.
This page.
Yeah,
It's
are you
like,
talking about
it's
the
the
drop that-
70%.
Sorry, I just want to help anyone else, but since you're saying actually, are you talking about the drop from year to year?
Yeah, I believe that was the figure for the difference in the parcel for the total assessed value coming off the tax roll.
we're talking right here, right?
Yes.
That's also here.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I
Yeah.
think it's the same.
It should be the same number.
It would
So
be-
from 2024, equalized value increased.
The equalized value increase, but I thought that the drop in the assessment ratio, which is normal as you get farther away from a reassessment, is what would play into the majority of the value that we lost in the assessed value. And then the UW Credit Union would come in and then property appreciation would come in.
It could be a combination of that. It may be that it's the case, but that was at least initially, that was what I thought that
Got it.
the difference was between the two. So with the change, in totality at the end, the overall difference in the tax rate for 2025 to 2026 will amount to 22 cent difference, and it would be a total of a little over 4% in the municipal increase for next budget year as a result of those changes. So you can see what the associated difference in a property assessed at different values would be for what that residents share of their new budget charges with this change on a property value between 250,000 to $2 million.
But to be clear, for anyone who I don't think it is paying attention, but maybe they'll watch it later. To be clear, this is really only if you've got a $2 million house, you could expect $432 increase paid to Shorewood.
Yeah.
That does not count MATC, MMSD, state. Okay.
Right.
And county.
Right, and that $432 is the total levy, right? So it has the operating component, the operating cost component of it, and it also has the pass-through of the debt levy. So the village municipalities are allowed to pass through the full cost of debt service, principal and interest, and the levy does not, no levy limits apply to the pass-through of the debt service costs. Levy limits only apply to the pass-through of the operating costs. Okay. And so when we look at the $432, it could actually be disaggregated into, there's a certain portion of that represents their share of paying principal and interest on the village debt. And there's a portion of it that is allocated essentially to pay for the operations of the village. And one is constrained by levy limits and the other is not. And I think, Brian, you said that with respect to the operating levy, that the village only got $9,000. Is that the right amount? Okay. So we were only able to increase the operating levy because of levy limits by $9,000 total on a levy limit that's over 2.3 million. So it's a very small increase. And that's dictated by the fact that our net new construction was minimal in 2025. So we just have no ability to raise those taxes without going to referendum.
So roughly speaking, we're being asked to look at a levy increase of 70,000, but roughly speaking, almost all of that is 70,000 is debt service.
And the small kit, yeah.
Huh.
No, it's not small.
Well, no, I mean, from, the levy.
And we, even though that's debt service, so our debt service went up roughly 70,000. 60,000, but so the levy limit is making it so that we can only above and beyond that raise our taxes $10,000. Yeah, and this is what I get back to, like, we've got to have an honest discussion with people. We've got to, I mean, it's not just the net new construction or the referendum. It's also pulling back, like, can we cut expenses? And I think, honestly, I think we could cut expenses. I guess I personally find that distressing that we can only raise our taxes $10,000.
Do we have any sense of what the net new construction might be for next year? Just in terms of what's, I could go around and look at what's under construction, but
I
is there
think the
anything
last
meaningful
couple
outside
of
of
years, I had a attachment in the last budget, or excuse me, the last board meeting packet, which showed, I think, the last 4 years. And I think I don't even know that we exceeded 1%.
No, we were always behind. In the Ellers presentation, which we circulated to the committee, it has a history of net new construction in that packet. I didn't bring mine tonight, but you've got it all because it was distributed to the committee
It was in August.
back in July or
It's the
something like
August
that.
twenty twenty-five.
August, July. Yeah, I think it was a July presentation to the board, August before the committee. But that shows the history of that levy and the net new construction, and it's like less than 1% for the last 5 years. It also reports on what the inflation rate is, the general inflation rate during that time, and what the levy limits of Dane County has been. And I think Dane County is like 2.5% or something like that. So
Because of that
we're
new
way
construction,
less
yeah.
than the surrounding communities, which really puts us behind the 8 ball. But we will, once the 2026 budget is approved by the board, we'll be working with Ellers to incorporate the 2026 budget in the financial management plan, as well as other assumptions with regard to financing and capital projects in subsequent years, and having them rerun the model to give us a better sense of what the impact is going to be in future years in terms of the operating deficits that we'll be looking at. And that will help guide our decision making about whether we should go to referendum or not go to referendum, and also what we can do from a capital expenditure point of view in the next few years. So there will be a full sort of presentation that brings all that together, but I think we were waiting for the 2026 budget to be approved so that it could be incorporated in the model, as well as them to fine tune some of the capital expenditures and financing of those expenditures that we anticipate over the next 5 to 10 years. So that presentation hopefully will be before the board at its regular meeting in November. And at our regular meeting in November, after the board meeting, we can have a follow-on discussion of what the implications of what those early projections by Ellers are, and give them some guidance and give the board some guidance as to what direction we want to head in terms of how are we going to, in future years, when we are so capped by the levy limits, how will we manage to close the gap and continue to do balanced budgets going forward? So it's all part of that plan. Kate?
In the board meeting last week, Tuesday, it was, I was an audience member, and it sounded to me like the discussion was that referendum was nearly certain to be needed next year. And then I thought we had a really good discussion today about the unassigned fund balance, and I'm trying to make those two make sense.
I don't see it that way. I mean, it may have sounded that way. But I think we're going to be data driven here, and the data is still coming in. Not only are we still finalizing our 26 budget, but Ellers is still updating their model. So I don't think any decision, and certainly I have no particular point of view on it. I'm just waiting for the data to be put into the models and the models projections updated, and we'll have the discussion at that point. Because as you point out, we do have an unassigned fund balance. And so while it seems to me logical that over a long period of time, we are going to have to go to referendum at some point, because we won't see any relief until the TIFs are dissolved at beginning in 2031. But in the shorter term, 1 year, 2 years out, it may be that our unassigned fund balance can carry us through. I mean, that's what we're certainly seeing in 2026. Whether that will be true in 2027, I don't know, or 2028. So we really need to know, when does the rubber hit the road? When do we actually, our fund balance comes down and we really are constrained by levy limits, and we don't expect any net new construction, and so something has to give. And the kicker in all of it is that because you have to go to referendum, it really backs up the time to make that decision. So even if we felt like we needed to raise the levy limit for, say, 2027, in order to do that, you would have to have the referendum question fixed sometime in June of 2026, like 6 months before you'd see any of the benefit, assuming that it passed. So it just suggests to me we do need to be thinking ahead. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I was intend on bringing Ellers on board and their financial model on board, because we need to look several years out to see, okay, at what point does our fund balance come down? At what point does net new construction stay level or go up? And when do we see that we actually expect an operating deficit that can't otherwise be cured other than lifting levy limits? So,
And I think that's what I heard too at the board meeting. That's that June target.
yeah, that's
That's
the
what I heard.
earliest it
That's
could
what I was
happen,
hearing
and
too
that
from
would
the
take
board meeting.
effect in 2027 and only if it passed. But as you can see here, we're going to get through 2026. Yes, we're going to draw down the unassigned fund balance by $93,000, but our fund balance at the end of last year was $1.4 million. And even after accounting for pulling the 93,000 out next year, we still are above our maximum kind of target of 25% of the budget. So there doesn't seem to be any urgency with respect to 2026, but whether there's urgency with respect to 2027 or 2028, and if there was, when would we actually have to begin thinking about it in order to be able to make sure that we have thought it through and that we get on the ballot on a timely basis? So if we felt there was going to be a problem in 2027, we'd have to move by June of 26.
In order to be on the ballot in November.
In order to be in the ballot in November, we'd have to have the question, I think, in 2026. Yes.
How's that gonna work with a budget season?
I think
That
we need
has
to-
to be
have
before
to-
that.
I think
No.
On August election.
And that's why we're not talking about looking at this simply as through the budgeting process here, but we're looking at through the financial model that Ellers is, because they're looking 5 to 10 years out, which is the kind of time horizon we need to look at.
But I'm hearing two different things. So is it November ballot or is it August primary?
So-
Brian, you're the one that has the information, please.
So I don't quote me on this, I'm not 100% certain.
Are you scared?
If it's a August, no, what I'm saying is if it goes on the ballot in August, the benefit to the village and the benefit to the village staff is that we wouldn't have to prepare two budgets
Oh my gosh,
for
can we please?
November to find out one if it passes, one if it doesn't, and
Yeah.
yes. So for my sake, I would say August would be the preferred
Okay,
drop dead date.
but it could be on the November ballot because I'm asking because there's some nonpartisan ballots, there's partisan ballot. So this would have to be a partisan election is what I'm getting at.
It has to be on a
Federal,
federal.
yeah.
Federal election, so it would have to be August primary, November general.
One.
Well, it could also, I mean, if you're really ambitious, you can have, there's also a primary in April.
That's oh, is it a,
It can be. It
Yes.
Depends on the seat,
I'm looking at you.
but keep in mind.
It would have to be the
Federal
August.
elections are generally every other year unless there's a
Right.
special election.
Right.
So if you don't address it in 26, you really can't really address it until 28.
Okay, so it's a
that's why we wanna
federal,
See the Ellers down the road thing to make sure.
so
There
it's
is
a
a-
federal ballot.
There is a timetable in the Ellers presentation, the July presentation that you saw. I
In the
think in the
August
August
package.
packet, it actually has a table that indicates what the dates, the deadline dates are in order to get in the ballot in the next couple of years. So that's the place you could refer back to. So to sort of answer the question, no, I don't think the village, certainly not on my part, is committed to a referendum or levy limits. What I think I'm committed to is a process of getting the Ellers financial model updated soon, hopefully in November, so that we could actually look and see what the projections are for the next 5 to 10 years and start to make a better informed decision about what the risks are of running deficits, how far out they are, and what the magnitude of the deficits are, to make a decision as to when, if and when to go to referendum.
So if I can do a follow-up question.
Yep.
It's very helpful. It makes sense. Do the Ellers projections to be data driven. I love it. And we didn't really get to it last week on our agenda because we were kind of constrained, but the referendum was on our agenda, if I recall correctly. What were we hoping to achieve in a discussion last week if the processes get the data first?
I don't think the,
It was on the board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was, okay, then let me rephrase the question. Sorry, that kind of blurred together, I think, for all of us. What, you know, from a finance committee perspective, I'm trying to understand, what is it that we're trying to get our arms around now to have it had been on the board agenda ahead of having the data?
I think the only thing was to highlight for the board that this is an issue, but not to, and to say if the worst case, because you always got to plan for the worst case, is that it could mean that we'd have to go to referendum next year. And if we want to avoid preparing two budgets in the event that the referendum fails, you'd have to do it earlier in the year rather than later in the year. So it's just to sensitize the board to those kind of timelines, but those are the worst case timelines. And I think as you can see here, we're saying, well, it looks like that our unassigned fund balance will still be 27.4% of our operating budget at the end of 26. So we're going to still have some cushion going into 27, but whether that's an adequate cushion, whether that's something that we feel confident about and therefore want to not do a referendum in 26, that's something the board will have to talk about. But I think you can't really meaningfully have the conversation unless you have the model results in front of you with the latest data. And the latest data would be the 2026 budget. And then I would say the results of the 2026 audit, right? Because we don't know exactly where our fund balance is at the moment. We have estimates, but we don't know in the same way that we know at year end when it's audited. So early next year, hopefully, you know, February, March, Baker Tilly will be coming in. They'll be doing the audit and we'll know exactly where that fund balance stood as of December 31st. And that will be another important data point in trying to decide at what point do we want to consider the referendum and what are the implications on that.
I don't know if we can wait that long. If you want to do a referendum that year, we probably couldn't
Yeah.
look for the audit results because they should have come from me.
Well, I think it would be something that it's an important data point, but I don't know that we would hold up the whole process for it. I think we would look at the Ehlers results based on the 2026 budget and any other updates we do in the next month or so. And that would begin the process of saying, okay, when is this something that we need to think about, not only educating ourselves, but educating the public? Because there could be a long lead time, as you've pointed out in the past, in trying to educate the public about the village's finances. It's complicated. This fund accounting that we do is different than the kind of accounting you do in your household, and it's different from corporate accounting. So it does take time to get people up to speed where they can make an informed kind of judgment as to where the village's finances stand and how much risk, if you will, are we willing to take that we have an adequate reserve to carry us through to the next election cycle.
So looking at the package from Ehlers from the August 2025 finance packet, it clearly says a municipal referendum can be held in odd number years as a special election on the same dates as used by school boards. So we could do it in 2027, but it sounds like it's a little bit more complicated. And the natural way a referendum would normally work is in even number years. So it's either next year or we hold our breath and we hope that things are okay until 2028, which I think you're kind of risk averse, just saying. But so I'm thinking that all indications, and to that, Ehlers packet does not model out 2027. It models 2025 and it models 2026.
And that's why we need to bring the models up to speed and bring Ehlers in and be able to answer for us not only questions about the model and their projections, but also this timetable. And it will come down to an issue of your risk tolerances. We might be able to get through 2027, but what are the consequences if we couldn't? and we got caught mid-year. We had some major expense we didn't anticipate. And now we're in a position where we can't go to referendum. We're in the middle of 27. We have to wait another year. It could get a little dicey. So I think Ellers, we need the projections. Ellers needs to walk us through that. They need to walk us through the time constraints and then try to figure it out from there.
29 before we saw anything from a 28.
I think it would be, that was super helpful. But I think we have one person watching and a lot more people watch the village board meeting. I think it would be helpful if, I would imagine you would do this anyhow, Mark, to explain. I think last week I got questions, I don't know about other committee members, about the positioning of the logic vote with the discussion of the referendum. And I think created some concern with the people who've asked me this week about it, about does not doing the logic mean we're definitely going to a referendum? Nobody said that, but that is something that I've heard, and this provided clarification that I think would be helpful to the broader audience who watches the village board meetings, who don't tune into our thrilling discussions on finance.
We could certainly do that. There will be a public hearing. Is it actually a hearing? A hearing for the budget on November 11th, right? The board will conduct, and then the actual approval of the budget, the 2026 budget, would occur at the regular meeting of the board a week later. So there'll be a couple opportunities to better inform the public about not only the 26 budget, but what the longer term implications are. But I don't think necessarily would be great, but I don't know that we'll have the updated Ellers model by the time of the regular board meeting in November. So that may have to be December, whatever, but see. Okay. So back to the levy. Are there other questions with respect to the levy that's essentially being proposed in this packet here? So the way things would work is we would make a recommendation to the village board with respect to the proposed levy for 2026. The board would not meet until its regular meeting in November, guessing 17th or something like that. Is that 18th, something like that, to take action on that. And before they do, they would hold the public hearing on November 11th. So there's going to be some education going on between now and then. There may be changes to the budget between now and then, either informed by the public meeting or from the staff. So things are moving a little bit, but I think the goal here is to get that recommendation in front of the board as a starting point, and then the board can decide if in fact this is the proposed budget before them on the 17th or the 18th, then everything's fine. If the budget changes, it's unlikely that the levy would, because again, we're talking about maxing it out. So the levy is probably the least variable in all the moving parts here in the budget, simply because it's at the moment it's maxed out at 10,000 more than the prior year. So I think maybe we're ready to entertain a motion to recommend to the village board the 2025 levy as presented, as proposed. Shall we, something along those lines?
I'm sorry, I got here late. There's two things I just want clarification.
Well, can we let's get the motion on the table and then we'll have the discussion thereafter. So I'll go ahead and make that motion, Julie. And if it's seconded, then we'll have Sean will second that. And now the floor is yours to talk.
Yes, I'd like to hear it.
A motion to recommend to the board the 2025 levy for the 2026 budget as presented.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Sean.
should it be more
Well,
specific?
Sean has the floor.
Well, I mean, I
Did you have
still
a
don't
question about the
understand the
motion? Go ahead.
motion. What?
Repeat the motion again, please.
Shouldn't it
Well, let
specifically
Julie
say what the
repeat it.
levy is? I heard what Julie said, but Shouldn't.
Yeah, I
you-
don't know, that's just. I just added on to what Mark said, if you want
Yeah.
to specify the levy amount,
Yes,
do that as well. Levy. The 2025 levy for the 20, in the amount of,
$3,540,935.
thank you, Marilyn, that's.
and then
So
can we have
does-
it read back?
Does Sean need to accept, he seconded my motion. Does he need to accept the amendment?
Sorry, just so what was the amount that we're doing? Because I thought that was total 2025 levy.
3,000,005. This.
So what I have typed. I can
Yeah.
type.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Sean.
we're looking at the 2026 budget.
2025.
It's the 25 levy for the 26 levy.
Okay.
And the amount.
Yes, in the amount of 3,540,935. Okay, I do
Yeah,
second
for that.
that.
Yeah, okay, we're good with that. Okay.
Okay.
Sean, you
But it's not as
you had some,
presented.
dis-
It's just that, in that
Just
amount,
that
thank
amount.
you, as presented.
This is what the motion is.
Thank you.
Okay.
okay, so discussion.
So again, apologize, got here late.
Yep.
So I am looking at the general government revenues, page 1 of 21. I think that this has been clarified, but there's 3 sections, the top section, but the number 93,000 towards the bottom. Transfer from other funds, I believe that's coming from unassigned fund balance. I just wanted to
Correct.
clarify that.
Correct.
That was mentioned. Okay.
The 43 is coming from there and as well as the 50, but they're going to different
Okay,
places.
so that's, yeah, because then on page 4 of 21, in the second section from the bottom, again, I apologize if this was rehashed. I just want to make sure I understand, but those, yeah, so it's broken up with 50,000 and 43,000.
Right. So there was the 43,000 last year. We levied for the small cap funding,
Okay,
about 43,000.
got it.
They decided not to do that this year, but rather to fund the small cap fund with a direct transfer from the unassigned fund balance of $43,000. The 50,000 is the gap between revenues and expenditures in the general fund that has to be closed.
Perfect. Okay, got
Yep.
that. And then hopefully last question then, and again, page 1 of 21, that top third section with interest on investments,
Yep.
just the for the 200,000 do we have just an assumed interest rate? And again, what was the unassigned fund balance at roughly? I'm just curious. I just want to make sure. we don't
The
overshoot.
unassigned fund balance at end of year 2024 was 1.458 million. The projected end of year fund balance, unassigned fund balance, end of year 2026 is at 1.327.
Okay.
Try to take a conservative.
You know, I think that is conservative. I just want to make sure we're good.
Right. But
That's-
we're also
I'm-
heading into
Been good with that.
an
Because I
interest
just don't
rate
think we should
cycle
overshoot
where
that number,
rates are
and I think
coming
that's
down
realistic.
as opposed to going
Oh,
up.
yeah.
So
No, I still think that that's reasonable.
but
That's all I have.
any other discussion with respect to the motion or? If not, ready to vote on the motion?
Could I just hear the
Sure.
motion again?
Sure.
Recommend to the board the 2025 levy for the 2026 budget in the amount of $3,540,000, $3,540,935.
Thank you.
Anything else? Ready to vote then? All those in favor of the motion, say aye or raise your hand.
You want this to be a roll call vote?
Yes,
Would you like it a roll call
Let's make it a
vote?
roll call vote because I
Okay.
think Marilyn will like that as well.
Julie,
I
will
like
you
it
call
too.
it?
I wish it were just standard, so I appreciate that. Thank you,
No
Dietmar.
problem.
Give
Julie,
everyone
will you-
a so I can record it. Yes. At once. Okay. Sorry for the delay, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Dietmar,
Yes.
Gloria,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
and Mark.
Yes.
All eyes.
So that's it for our agenda tonight. I still plan on holding a meeting at a regular time in November, although I guess it's probably falling right into Thanksgiving holiday. Is that, I haven't looked at the calendar, the 24th? I don't know
It's a
if people will
previous
be
week.
around to
Can-
attend that meeting.
And can I point out that pretty much my memory is that every November and every December, we cancel finance because of holidays.
Yeah.
I personally think we should either reschedule for a different week now or cancel now, but I don't think we should cancel now.
So you really, we just have one.
Well, no, I mean.
I agree. I think we should just hold the meeting.
I think we should hold the meeting. But every year we do cancel
First,
the meeting.
the November 24th, which would be our regular scheduled meeting, that's a Monday, the beginning of Thanksgiving week. But people attend that meeting?
Yes.
I could.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, see,
So would you be available to meet on Monday night, November 24th?
At 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock?
So-
I vote 7 o'clock.
So let's just keep that meeting date and we'll plan to meet on that day. And we'll be covering some of these issues which are on the future meeting agenda, such as the TIDs and these modifications we need to make to financial policy to account for the movement of the debt levy out of the general fund. And we'll see what else comes up before that time, but at least those issues. Kate?
Can I ask that, on future agenda items that maybe we just edit A or rather than adding an E, look at operating cost savings as a part of looking at revenue sources,
Make it separate.
make it separate.
Make it separate.
So we're gonna make it as a new one? What?
Okay, yeah, we're gonna do the new one.
Okay. Can you say that one more time for me, Kate?
Operational cost savings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other suggestions for future agenda items?
When are these future agenda items actually going to populate the agenda?
I mean, they're kind of a joke, frankly.
They're always on, but we just need to get to them.
Right, but it needs to be added to the agenda in order for us to get to it.
We discussed doing TIDs in November, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah?
That's what I heard.
Shut the
That's what I
front
heard.
door.
It's November.
at least some of these items will definitely be on the agenda. The TIDs, clearly the Joint Review Board is meeting. We will have the financial statements. There's no reason that I could see that not being on the agenda. And making those changes in financial policy as well. But we'll see, it's 30 days from now, other issues may arise. We'll see what comes out.
Please, no. Can we just vote no more issues? I vote against issues.
No, it's in November.
No issues, right?
Like it.
Other than that, I'll take a motion to adjourn unless,
Motion we adjourn.
Liz, is there a second to adjourn? Sean, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we're done for tonight. Thank you very much.
Yay, thank
We
you.
made some good progress. Please feel free to attend the public hearing on the 11th of the budget. As well, of course, the board meeting, because the budgets and the financial issues will be on both those agendas. And then our own meeting on the 24th. So.
And Brian, can something be put on the website?